Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
And welcome to Justice Serve TV. Michael Bryant here in Dedham. Linda Kenny Bodden. Where are you?
I'm here. I'm in New York. I just moved positions to my desk. Okay, I know it's not far. You've been all over the place in Dedham and in Canton and in Stoughton and in Dedham and in Canton and in Stoughton. And any problems with you? You're still standing alive. You're still not arrested.
You know, here's the update. I went and talked to Chief Rose, and he said I haven't heard anything. Not a surprise. I said, who can I talk to? They gave me the name of the person in Boston who I called and got voicemail. But I made it very clear, you know, here's where we are. Here's what's happened in the past, just as a reminder. And then I said, you know, I've been here a few times over the last couple of weeks, and some of the folks that you have given credentials to, I'm sorry, it's really not appropriate. But if they can get credentials, God bless them. I think you ought to be looking at us a little more closely. So we'll see. We'll see if we get any response of any kind from that.
And then we do have a surprise later on the show. You had really, Karen Reed answered you exclusively today on our show.
Well, I almost bumped into her. You know, it's always a big scrum, you know, when people are, you know, gathering around as they're coming down the ramp. And we'll show that video. I just released it a while back. But as they come down the ramp, there's the horde is right there at that opening. So I just got backed away a little bit. And then so once the Red Seas parted, you know, it's like I almost got uncomfortably close. Like, whoa, sorry. It's like, whoa, you're right there. And so, yeah, she's never not answered questions I've asked. So I wasn't surprised at that. And I was curious, you know, we know she's not going to give any sort of, you know, telling response if you ask if her attorney has done a good job with the expert on the stand, just finished. Obviously, she's very happy with Mr. Alessi. And I think we would agree that he did a hell of a job. So.
He should be very happy with the Alessinator. I think that's what his daughter has as her handle on Twitter. So I went on a few rants today, Michael Bryant, when you were out in the field. Yes, and I know we're going to play you out in the field because that's why you're there. That's why Justice Serve TV is there. But I went on a number of rants, and we're going to play a lot of them in the courtroom, including a couple that we're right on. And there was a couple of apologies in that courtroom today, and a couple of I'm sorries. And from one of them, you wouldn't believe who it's from. But in the meantime, you know that I am married to a forensic pathologist. Everyone here kind of knows that. We didn't tweet out that he was going to be on because he's not going to be on to talk about Karen Reed. He's actually going to be on because I want to hear him say that I'm right. Okay.
Oh, so you're making him do that publicly. All right. That's interesting tact. Okay.
So let me set it up. So they started with Trooper Keefe today, and Trooper Keefe actually had to do some evidence. He had to open a box with some taillight in it. And apparently there was a problem with that because you know how sometimes you open evidence, at least it happened in Hernandez, where 2 bullets become 3 or 3 bullets become 2. Well, in this one, apparently, I wish you had your pieces of polycarbonate.
I know. I put them away after last night and they're back at home. So, yeah.
I wish you had those because what happened was, and it wasn't apparent as what was said, but there's a chip that came off one of the lights. So one of the polycarbonate pieces, instead of being 2 pieces, is now 1 piece is now 2 pieces. So Mr. Yannetti kind of like focused on that, had the court mark it. It was put in a small envelope, and gee whiz, I mean, wouldn't you know about that the polycarbonate, when it's in a piece and it's going against each other and it's not being handled properly, could fracture. Now, of course, the prosecution is going to say it fractured against an arm, but indeed,
it doesn't matter. It's so ridiculous that all of them are in one bag. I mean, what is the deal? You guys are fresh out of evidence bags. Just go to Stop and Shop and get some more. Every piece should be in a separate bag.
Red Solo cup, all right? And so they contaminate it. It's just the whole thing. But they were being so careful about how the evidence was open. And Hank Brennan was like, and you put red tape. And yeah, we do initials. And then when it's reopened, you put red tape. You know, it's been such a mess. They put things in red Solo cups. And they use Gucci leaf blowers. I don't know. It was ridiculous. So anyhow, then he was the trooper that went to and he kind of like was like, well, he didn't know whether or not Trooper Proctor was lead. They're trying to hide Proctor, and this was Yanetti's first time to start saying the word Trooper Proctor, former Trooper Proctor, former Trooper Proctor, former Trooper Proctor. But and he tried to get into the conversations that Trooper Proctor had and what Keefe understood Proctor had told the medical examiner, Dr. Scortibello, who, as you know, as everyone knows, the prosecution may not call, right? Because she doesn't do them any good. They have to go around her and around their forensic neuropathologist and around the FBI forensic pathologist and around ARCA and around the accident reconstructionist and around the biomechanical engineer to try to get a cause and a manner of death consistent with homicide, which they can't get for the medical examiner. So he was trying to explore that. And the judge there was an objection from Hank Brennan at every single turn, objection. And then the judge, unsurprisingly, was sustaining it. So he was asking what this officer, was told before he went, what conversations he was having with the medical examiner. At one point, David Yannetti said, well, did you see her looking at John O'Keefe's wounds? And objection, sustained. I was like, what?
Where was she looking? She's looking at the ceiling. She's looking at her feet. It was theater of the absurd. It was ridiculous.
It was ridiculous. So I was doing a rant all the way through it, and she, she didn't even. He couldn't even say what she was told. What he was told when he left, right? Because that's supposed to be why you investigate. So I did a rant, and we're going to play the rant. It's short. It's about 1 minute and 50 seconds or so. And then we have a very special guest, my husband, who's going to come on and talk about what happens in an autopsy room in terms of the cops coming in, why they're there, what the medical examiner normally tells the cops, why he tells them. And then I'm gonna warn you, he's not going to answer questions about the case because he's got his own stuff that he's going to do, not my stuff, not your stuff. Not Karen Reed stuff. So why don't we play that clip, Missy, and then Michael will come on off over.
All right, rant. Stand up. Let's rant. Okay. The troopers leave. They want to know. They're there at the autopsy because they want to know what the medical examiner and forensic pathologist is finding. So that guides their investigation. Did she find that this was a homicide? Did she find that the manner of death is a homicide? Remember, there's causes of death. That's what caused the death. In this case, it was the fracture and hypothermia, right? And the manner of death was left undetermined. Manners of death, it could be homicide, that's not murder, it's death at the hands of another, accident, suicide, natural, and then there's undetermined. Okay, so you really have the four that are the causes, the manners of death, and then the undetermined is the last. NASH system is called, NASH. Okay, and it's important to the officers when they leave. That's why they go to get in first of all to tell the medical examiner what they know and on their investigation so far. And when they leave with the information from the medical examiner, and it guides the investigation or an arrest or whatever. So to not allow this trooper to testify as to why he was there, what he told her, what he knew that he didn't need to tell her because somebody else had already told her. And by the way, that's not for the truth. It could be for the truth, but let me tell you, it's really not for the truth because you're not saying what the investigators said to her is actually true because they have a theory that may be not true, right? And then when you leave, you're taking that information because it's gonna affect you as to how you guide and what you do. So these objections are outrageous. But what's more outrageous is the fact that the judge is sustaining them. That's what's outrageous. This is where I have a real problem with this case because everything the defense does that's normal, allowed, would be allowed, clear, used in other cases, what we do as defense attorneys. This judge who was a defense attorney is objecting. She has a real hard ass here for the defense, starting with Alan Jackson. And it's becoming clearer and clearer and clearer to me. And this is my rant, okay? You know that sometimes I go on rants. This is my rant, okay? Let's go back in and listen.
Okay.
So did you say hard ass? Is that what you said? Did you say that?
I was going to say other things, but it's a family show, and we don't want to get things right.
Manson family. Yeah. Okay. So
right. I'm going to go behind my avatar. I'm going to bring Michael on. I'll move over to the side, but I'll go behind my avatar for the moment. and I'm going to mute myself, and I'll let you just take over for the 30 seconds that this switch can occur.
So here we are. I didn't go to the production meeting, so I have no idea exactly what's happening, except I think we're going to be graced with the presence of Dr. Michael Bodden to get his take on what normally happens, not necessarily this case, but what normally happens when there's an autopsy. There he is.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
How are you, doctor? I'm good. Good to see you. We appreciate you doing the little drive-by. So give us just the normal procedure in a situation in which there's an autopsy and police authorities are there. Why are they there? What do they do? What's the normal procedure?
Well, the normal procedure when there's a possible homicide involved is for police officers who are investigating the case and know about the case come to the autopsy to get the factual information from the first day of it when the autopsy is done. About 90% of what we learn from an autopsy is done that first 1, 2 or 3 or 4 hours that the autopsy proceeds, and the facts, what happened to the organs, the direction of bullets, the spray that bullet powders make in the body, for example, and that the only thing left, not always pertinent in a case, would be the toxicology and the microscopic examination if it's done. So 90% of what's known is known within the first day, even though there may be a delay in releasing the information, total information, because of the toxicology. The police come down and they give information about the background of the case and what they found at the crime scene, which can be helpful to the medical examiner in evaluating the autopsy findings. So they know a lot of information right at that time that helps the other in whatever further studies have to be done, and which may be more valuable if there's a very high drugs in the toxicology, for example. And so that the autopsy facts, the cause of death is usually determined almost completely on the first day. The interpretation of the manner of death that Linda mentioned about NASH, natural accident, suicide, homicide, depends on information the medical examiner may get from other people, usually from police, also from family members. You know, there's a drug overdose. Now, whether it's accident, suicide, or homicide may depend on the information that the medical examiner gets from other people. The fact that a person dies of a drug overdose or dies from falling out of a window or dies in a fire, that's an autopsy. The interpretation of whether it's an accident, suicide, or homicide often depends on additional information that the medical examiner then interprets to see what's consistent and what isn't consistent with the autopsy finding in determining the manner of death.
So it's very normal for the law enforcement, whomever they may be, to be part of that process, an important part of that process. And when they walk out the door, those law enforcement officers, don't they need some sense of what the autopsy has shown?
Oh, yes. They have to. They want information to tell them what direction to go in. The medical examiner also, from the rigor mortis and lividity and temperature at the scene, which is the most important question police ask the medical examiner, Doc, how long is he dead? So they get an idea of what kind of questions they ask at the significant time period to various people they interview, and to see what fits in with the time of death. That is obtained by the medical examiner going to the scene. Once the body is removed from the scene, those indicators are just disturbed and not of as much value. So it's a scene where the medical examiner, somebody from the ME office, goes to the scene. At autopsy, we can look at the gastric contents and tell what was the last meal the person had, and how long before death was the person alive after the meal, after that meal. All of this gives the police information that they use immediately, time of death, last time the person ate with somebody, that they can work with. And then the medical examiner at some point, after getting back the toxicology, can determine exactly what the cause of death is, and the manner of death still becomes partly dependent on information that he or she is getting from other people, from the family. Was a person depressed? It was a possible suicide. From a neighbor at the scene who may have heard or seen things that might be helpful, and from the family about whether the person was sick or mentally distressed, can enter into a determination of a manner of death.
Okay, one more question. I know I know you. I appreciate you swinging by and chatting with us for a minute. One more question. The medical examiner during that autopsy, the goal is not to come to undetermined, right? That's like that. That's the
right.
That everything else has been ruled out. So tell us how you get to that conclusion.
Well, undetermined is if you don't have any evidence as to cause of death. And that the most common undetermined cause of death is when skeletal remains are found in a wooded area. So, and you don't know whether it's a stabbing, a drug overdose, or having a heart attack because all the viscera are no longer present. That's usually the undetermined. Oftentimes it's undetermined because a person may have a bunch of natural diseases, and we don't know whether it's the heart disease or the cancer that caused the death. The cause of death, the manner of death is natural, but it's not always able to specify which of the various conditions he or she has. So that by doing a thorough autopsy and looking at the toxicology microscopic slides, it's about a 1% time that undetermined is put on the death certificate.
Boy, that's amazing. 1%. Okay. Well, always a fascinating part of the process forensically. And so, Dr. Michael Bodden, thank you so much for kicking Linda Kenny Bodden out of her seat.
Good to see. Still looks like you're standing up. That's great. That's healthy.
Actually, I'm sitting. Don't tell anybody I'm sitting because I'm going to be here a while.
It shows you how opinions can differ. To me, you look like you're standing. I'm sticking to it, even though it may not be correct.
Nice. I like it. Thank you, Doctor. Okay,
Bye-bye.
sir. We'll see you next time. Dr. Michael Bodden, always a pleasure. I always like chatting with that guy. He's got some great stories, amazing stories. So as you heard from him, the normal process, not only let's set aside the 1% being undetermined, which is amazing when you think of the Karen Reed case. He was talking generally, of course, about autopsies, the results, finding the mechanism of death and the cause of death. And law enforcement's kind of a big part of that process. What the coroner takes in, or the ME, whoever may be doing the actual autopsy, so important. And to just kind of blow it aside as they did in the examination today of the trooper that was there, was he a Canton police officer? Whoever was there for law enforcement, to object at every turn, to prevent him from telling this jury what happened during the autopsy in terms of his interaction with the medical examiner. It is critical. And then to suggest when he was done, right? I've done all I need to do. The autopsy's over. I'm going to hit the door. To not let this jury understand what his takeaway was from the autopsy. That's unforgivable. I mean, how does that help him do what he needs to do? It doesn't. And so you're doing everybody a disservice there, including the family of the victim, who want to know as much as they possibly can. Linda just going on about how great Dr. Michael Bodden is in giving us the guts of what is supposed to happen, right? In one of those autopsies attended by law enforcement.
Well, I've been in autopsies as a prosecutor. I've been in autopsies as a defense attorney when the client is charged and you're able to get or a second autopsy, you're able to get your medical examiner in there, or in the case where like maybe a shooting of a cop and you're able to you have the client. Usually there's that conversation, and I've seen the conversations. They go back and forth. And as I said earlier today, there's also a big dispute in the forensic science world. There are some people who want the medical examiner to have no information from the police, right? They want just scientifically, you tell us the cause and the manner of death. Well, I've lost Michael Bryant here now. I don't think that was meant to be, but somehow he did. He's going to come back. There he is.
Silence. I have a feeling, I always
you're not on screen. You're there. You go. There you go.
I always blame Starlink. It's very cloudy here today. There's been a lot of wind. Anytime there's cloud cover, can be an issue.
Yeah.
But luckily, we got Dr. Michael Bodden through cleanly. I think that worked out fine.
That worked out fine. So I was just saying, so there's that dispute in the scientific community, the forensic community, about how much the medical examiner should be told. Do you color their opinions by giving the information? But certainly, when you leave, what the officer believes is the cause and manner of death certainly helps guide the investigation. As I said, I've been as an attorney.
It's just ridiculous. And look, I understand that concern that the cops might come in and say, well, look for this and look for that, and here's what we think happened. But there should be a give and take where the autopsy is underway and the examiner is asking questions. Right. As he or she finds things during the autopsy. You want that exchange of information. So to try and keep that, it's just ridiculous.
Well, you're going in and out, Michael Bryant, again a little bit. So anyhow, so that was one rant, and then you've been doing a lot of stuff. I mean, we have a lot going on here today, about this, right? We have a lot going on in terms of what you said. Why don't we, since it was Day of Experts, so we can go back and talk about the experts. That would be the digital forensic expert who came on after the officer, the big Commonwealth expert for the day. You actually, before we discuss it and see why this may be, you have kind of an exclusive question to Karen Reed, as we said, and she answered you, Michael Bryant.
Yeah, you sound surprised, like women don't answer my questions. I don't understand that. She generally answers a question if you pose it to her, and I'm always very polite. I always say Miss Reed because we're not friends. So I say Miss Reed. But yeah, I mean, the gaggle is always here outside the steps right behind me. They've been using, you can see on that side, see the ramp that goes off over that shoulder? Goes off screen right to screen left. They've been using the ramp the last couple of times. Maybe it's because they pour out onto the street less dangerously. Because if you're coming down those steps, which are kind of steep, and there's too many people jostling, could get ugly. So they've been coming down the ramp. And I just kind of maneuvered out of the way of the scrum, let that happen, and then as the sea parted, I jumped in and I've actually, it was very kind of almost, not quite, but almost bumped into her. I've had dates where I've been further away from people, you know what I mean? So it was very close. Anyway, so of course she answered the question about, I was concerned about her thoughts on Alessi. Now we know she's going to just, I could have asked probably any question about her team and the response would have been about the same. But the fact is, it was critical, the work done by Mr. Alessi on this expert for the state, because we've seen her before, and she is very happy with her opinions. She's very happy to share those opinions. She is very smart. She will teach you many things you don't know, and she will dumb herself down as best she can so that you understand, like the peon you are. I just think it doesn't come all that well to me. It just seems a little high-minded. Like, okay, great, you've read a lot of books, you've done some testing. I appreciate that. What does it mean in this case? What does it mean to me? Make that as simple as you possibly can, because that's what the jury needs. They need those nuts and bolts. They want to know, what about that 227-40 deletion? Did it happen? Haslong to die in the cold. Did it not happen? Who deleted it if it was deleted? So Alessi, when he came back at her, I think did a great job of clarifying what she relied on. Remember, she's an expert. So you attack their opinions, you attack what they rely on for those opinions. And she's relying on some controversial pieces of software, right? Some that have gotten rid of that tab feature. And that is the crux of the prosecution's argument on that 227 note. That tab, although it was opened at 227, for other things, causes the 623 search to relate back to 227. That's the prosecution's point. Argument, right. That's what they're selling. And so I think you got to find some common ground for that. You got to find some ordinary person thinking that through. Well, what happens if I delete something? It really doesn't get deleted. I mean, it's not clear for anybody. They need to have it explained.
Well, I thought Alessi really. I mean, I kept saying boom. If we had a boom emoji, home run. I mean, I thought he hit a home run.
We do have a boom emoji somewhere.
Yeah, maybe. But Karma, by the way, obviously is worried about you, Michael. A bean burrito for Michael. Karma Dharma. Okay. Well, there we go.
Bean burrito. Right. If you get me one with green sauce, that may do it. That's right.
Karma Dharma must have heard the discussion. Thank you so much. We appreciate it very much. So why don't we listen to your question to her, and then we can go back and revisit some of the things that this expert. I don't know how long she's going to testify, because she has one opinion already where the judges found her methodology to be, out of here.
That, it's funny. Wasn't that funny how we'll get to this real exit in just a moment, but wasn't it funny how the witness mentioned that when Alessi first started? I mean, they had this big fight about this Maryland case in which the work of this witness, Ms. Hyde, Jessica Hyde, was not only mentioned, but trashed, right? And so there was a big fight because Alessi wanted to get it in as impeachment evidence. And it was basically shut down by the judge. Well, who brings it up in the first Q&A? It's Jessica Hyde. She's, I have that Maryland case here, but if we're not going to get into that, I mean, are you opening the door with that?
I thought they had.
Like
I thought they had, and I also thought when she mentioned methodology, the door was reopened. But we'll talk about that, because after we play Karen, because the judge was just, in my opinion, outrageous today. And I've been trying to defend her, Judge Beverly Cardone. I've been trying to defend her because I know they have a hard. But today, Rant Day. Okay, why don't we listen to this?
Yeah, I'll narrate this because it's riveting. Here are people walking. Yeah, so here they come. They're coming down the ramp, and you see Alan Jackson leading the way. And there's Karen and others. I was talking to a good friend of the Reed family today. I know some folks will recognize the name Esty, and we're going to have her on at some point. But she's always very supportive, and she sits right next to the Reeds in court. So you've probably seen her on the feed. Anyway, so they're coming down. They're zigging and zagging their way down basically the handicapped ramps or the disabled. So here we go. Then this happens. So there's the scrum I mentioned. I'm not hearing audio. Anybody? Are you hearing audio?
No, I'm not hearing audio either.
If she stops to talk,
we'll see.
Doesn't let them know. Please.
Case is almost over.
Be careful. They don't reach cases. They don't want to trip and break anything.
Ms. Reed, how do you feel about the way Mr. Alessi left the jury and that expert?
Oh, always great. Always great. Thanks for asking.
So there you go. Then they go off to this corner, which is right behind me this way, and you see the black SUV there. They gather there. Cops all over the place, and they pack up. They pack up for the day.
Yeah, and they're going down the ramp because all of them are carrying pretty much the rollers down. It's called, you know why? Because they're trying to cost experts, and they have all sorts of documents and all. And so the things you bring to court in the final, your trial binders become a lot bigger at this stage of the proceedings. So that's why you're seeing that ramp being used. And quite frankly, it's a lot safer.
And there's so much stuff, and you're taking everything you could possibly need. Right. Because you don't want to be trapped and realize that one document you needed, that one article is back in your hotel room.
Right, exactly.
Nothing feels worse than that.
Yeah, but it was great, Michael, because there was a lot of people there. Even though we didn't hear the sound at the beginning, there's no only person whose question she answered directly was your question.
Yeah, there. I think Matt from Court TV, who was set up right over here. He's not there now. They're done. They did their 6. You know how it is in the big time. You do your 5-minute hit and you get the hell out of there. We kind of dig a little deeper. Anyway, so they and the BZ woman. Couple of others, the regulars, they have a little Q&A of some sort. Nothing that meant much to me. It was kind of throwaway type questions. I was just very curious about her take on Alessi. I think she was genuine in saying that he did a good job, and I can't disagree.
Oh no, he did a fantastic job. And as we've talked about it, when we first came in, we were concerned. We first saw him. Is he going to be jury friendly? Is he going to be jury friendly? Well, not only is he jury friendly, he is. Backs the judge down a little bit. He is fearless. I mean, he is fabulous. He is wonderful. this is my area of work that I would do if I'm in the courtroom. He did it so well. He was so great. Okay. Do you want to talk about, I don't know if we have any clips. You want to play some of those clips, or what do we have rolled up, Missy, before we get to the apology? I know, I think we could just talk about that because we have yours, also your video at Fairview, but why don't we talk a little bit about that? Because he got her to admit, and to me, this was on recross at the very end, after the kapow, the boom, let's do it again, the boom, okay? And we're not trying to be funny. We're not trying to be, but it was boom, kaboom all the time. He got her to admit that John O'Keefe's phone was going on for 3 minutes. She had in her report that the last thing with the phone was a movement at such and such. And it turns out in different reports, she had different things. And one of them had that they went on for 3 minutes, 3 minutes and 2 seconds, I believe, extending the time to 12:32 that John O'Keefe was walking with his phone. And I'm not using the actual times here, okay? Because that's irrelevant. She got her to admit that. That the company she used to be the director of, right, does a system where you actually see where the deletions go, as opposed to you interpret and you remove them. Okay, if you think that maybe it's some kind of software anomaly, or maybe the cops have asked you to change your software to do that. So you see it, and then she said it was important to do a check and a recheck on things when she used it, and that whole search about the 227 was there. It was there.
Yeah, I hope the jury understood, because it gets a little tricky when they start talking about the different software. They're talking about Cellbrite and they're talking about Axiom, and one has removed this from its software, this ability to identify date stamps and tabs, right?
Right.
And I just don't. It gets very tricky, and I just hope that the jury understood. They've got a lot more to hear on this 227 search.
Right.
Obviously, that's huge. They're going to hear more. But I think this first dose is pretty heavy stuff for them to sort through. And I hope they just, keep that in their minds and use it when the rest of the information starts to come in through some of the different witnesses, especially through the defense witnesses. But it is so important. This was a point that the prosecution, it's a do or die point for the prosecution. If they can't convince this jury that search was not made at 227, but was made later at 623, now they're stuck with, why in the world would Jen McCabe search that before she even knows from Karen Reed that Officer John O'Keefe has not come home and is not around? I mean, there's no good spin on that.
Yeah, unless he softened her up by pointing some things that were. Well, first of all, I think she softened up because she knew there was this whole argument on this Herrera case, which apparently is a superior court in Maryland, the same level as Judge Cadone, which ruled that her testimony could not come in because her methodology was bad, right? And the judge the judge, instead of like listening to that, was like, I'm going to need some time on this. So the jury took a longer break. I'm going to need some time. And she came back and she said, well, I'm not going to let it in because, and she quoted a rule that said you should have fairness. All these rules should be interpreted for fairness and justice and the administration of fairness, really, for the defendant, is what the rules say. And so you said, well, that's surprising because I didn't think she was going to let this in. And then she says, not going to allow it in. And by the way, you should have told me earlier. It was like like tiny schoolgirl comment.
Neener. Well, I've always considered the specificity of the rule that the court points to as how clear they are on what they're doing, and hers was the broadest of all rules. Fairness, fairness for the defendant, fairness for the trial. I mean, well, you can cram anything into that box. So for her to use that as her sole reason for not allowing that discussion of the Maryland case, and oh, by the way, you should have brought it up to me sooner. Oh, come on. So why? Because you had to spend 20 minutes doing your job? Please.
Right.
So I thought that was a surprise, right. And it certainly that's going to be an appealable issue should it come to that. In and of itself, probably harmless error, but these things pile up.
Well, I thought what was great about it is that she knew that they were going there. So it softens her up for cross-examination because, right, she just had this opinion that came down in March. It wasn't like it was just recently that said that she's her opinions were unreliable because her methodology is unreliable. Methodology is unreliable. So she knows that.
That's unemployable. That's what that is.
That's what
I mean,
that's
who's going to hire an expert that's unreliable?
Yeah. And so she has that. And so Leslie softens her up by talking about how her report talks about 11:23 and 11:24 a.m. And she really meant universal time, right? That's what she was really meant. But it was all these little things. And at one point, she had the phones wrong. She didn't know whose phone was whose phone when she's searching. All right. He said, well, wouldn't it be wouldn't it be like a good thing to perhaps say, that to know whose phone you're looking for, and do you know the import? And then she said, but I was given very limited thing. I was just supposed to search two. She says at one point 2 searches. Okay, she doesn't say 3. I don't know if Alessi picked up on that because he didn't seem to pick up on a cross, because sometimes you don't hear. So she was given to search 2 searches, it seems to me, and see whether they were valid, and a very limited time period. Had to end at 12 on the 12 p.m. It was like from 12 to 12. It was like that time period she was given. And that was it. And nothing else in between. So he kind of softened her up a little bit on that, showing that she had all these little mistakes in her report. And then he went in for the kills. Really, he went in for the kill. It's still there, an axiom. And I had this report which said it was there, and I said it was important to there. And by the way, it's there in Cellbright when you looked at it. Yes, it's still there. So, and then it turns out this whole idea of parsing, which Cellbright uses, which means they just make it so you can't see it. It doesn't mean that it actually has disappeared. Okay. And so she admits that the search was there. And so with the change of the software, it just means that you can't see it. Okay. And that's what parsing out versus something else that Axiom does, which actually puts it where it should be. The search goes where it should be, and the deletion goes where it should be. So you see it where it should be. Well, it seems to me if you see it where it should be, if it was made, ta-da!
Yep, and again, I hope this doesn't get all jumbled in the jurors' minds. But I think it'll get clearer. From Karma Dharma, wait till the jury hears Richard Green. This was an interesting moment. You may have remembered when the court asked the defense, "Are you going to put on Richard Green?" Right? And right. Alessi's answer was not a definite yes. He said, "We're going to have somebody. We'll have somebody, but we're not sure yet if it's going to be Mr. Green." So that leads you to believe that maybe, they would have had to have disclosed whoever the expert might point. So I don't know who it might be if it's not Richard Green.
Yeah, I don't know, but that was an interesting disclosure. Because Alessi was saying, the judge, you're asking me, I'm not here to disclose you my whole cross-examination and everything we're doing. I'm not here to do that, right? Alessi was saying that, right? So the judge was trying to, he was trying to pick his brain as to where he was going, and he refused to give it. By the way, Ms. Hyde was snarky, probably didn't go over well. That's Carla. Free Karen Reed, member for 1 month. Thank you for that comment.
That's my feeling, that she just comes off as indignant that you have the nerve to challenge her. Right. I had a question up before that. Once again, you've snagged
I'm
me.
sorry.
Okay.
I apologize. I apologize.
This is a big issue, and we were talking about it back and forth texting just before we went on about the shoes. I know that Will, the glarer, has been making a big deal about how the picture of the shoe looks like it has a black sole. And then the shoe entered into evidence today has a white sole or a light colored sole. I'm not sold, so to speak, on that being a big controversy. Mainly because how stupid would that be for law enforcement to try and enter into evidence a shoe different than the one they found? To me, they've done some stuff in this case. We've challenged them on many things they've done or not done. That seems to me to be just beyond ridiculous and moronic. So I'm not buying it. Maybe it was it was a nighttime shot of the shoe in the snow against the curb. And the video that I did earlier today, where I walk along that curb, give folks a spatial orientation for where that search took place. So you can see the curb, and you can imagine the tennis shoe just up against it. So I don't know, lighting issue, photography issue. I just don't know that it's a different shoe.
Well, maybe it was dirty, and we're going to find they actually washed it off. Wouldn't that be interesting? Okay, so yeah. I'm waiting to do shoes. Normally, that's not something that I would wait on. I could buy a whole shoe store out, but I'm waiting to do shoes on that because I want to see. Because if that was the true sole color and it's black, and now it's white, and it was in the snow plow, how the snow gets kind of blackish in there, and somebody washed evidence off, that would be really, that would even be better. That would be, wouldn't that be, that would be really good to know. So going back to Miss Hyde, who, by the way, I wanted to tell you about Faraday bags. And when she was caught, she was.
I remember that coming up in trial number 1, the Faraday bag. We've talked about Faraday bags a lot in a lot of different cases, and how important they are, that they basically insulate a phone that's in evidence from being tampered with, through the ether,
Yeah.
And was there one here? Was there one? No.
No Faraday bag, no Faraday box, no putting it in airplane. And she turned to the jury like this, and she said, and you should have your Faraday bags tested because, they can be untested. Like anyone, excuse me.
Thanks, Professor.
Anyone fucking cares, okay? About whether the Faraday bag that wasn't.
How many people in that jury have a Faraday bag? What's your guess? One out of 18. It's not a normal accessory because most people aren't collecting evidence. The best reason to have one is if you're traveling. And people will come up and they'll clone your phone just by bumping into you. So when you're traveling and you're a tourist, look at that building. Boom, somebody bumps into you and they cloned your phone. So you can put it in this little Faraday bag while you're traveling. Most people don't. It's just not like, let me grab my, my nausea pills and my Faraday bag. When you travel, you just don't think about it. But it's
you should have one. I actually have one for our car key for our SUV when we're in the country, because some people can drive by and just clone it. That's what they do down in the Jersey Shore a lot.
Yeah.
And so you have to put your car key, because all these new car keys all have the it's not just ignition. And so the car key goes in a Faraday bag at night, so it can't be so the whatever it is that gives out, the radio frequency can't be cloned. And
I'm guessing Dave Faraday created that. Bill Faraday, because Faraday doesn't. I don't think it translates to cell phone protection. So I think it must be named after somebody. So anyway, in this case, there was not one.
Yeah.
So for the period of time, 6:05, they get the phone, right? 6:05, and until noon, which was the only time in which Ms. Hyde looked at that phone, 6+ hours. She just guaranteed to the jury that no, it was never in a Faraday bag and it was never in airplane mode. So you fill in the blanks. Well, what could have happened? Who could have fiddled with that in that 6-hour period?
Yeah, and she's saying, well, we know it wasn't in a bag because it was gaining information, it was getting stuff.
Yeah, it was receiving information back and forth. Yeah, and so these are these things in this case that drive you nuts, because it's not like you have hard and fast information that something was tampered with, or it's just that the possibility exists. Right. And you want to foreclose those possibilities. That whole chain of custody for evidence kind of makes sense. And here you have the 6-hour window when anybody with the gadgets to do it could have tampered with the phone.
Or looked at it, just opened up and looked at it and said, "Oh, I don't like this one. Let me delete this one." Because they already decided the character was guilty. So what their whole idea is that the cops can't be trusted here. And remember, the jury doesn't really know the importance of this yet, because they haven't heard Proctor. Right. They haven't heard the fact that phones were discarded. They haven't heard Higgins, ATF. They haven't heard all that, because Hank is trying to get the conviction in the jury's mind now, and therefore not make all that stuff matter. That's what he's doing. Psychologically, that's what he's doing. Okay? Yeah. In my opinion. So anyhow,
let me mention this real quick before I forget. Alessi, and to see if folks agree with me on this, he has a certain kind of Columbo element to his style, where so he seems like he knows every second what he's doing, but at times he makes it sound like he's a little less sure of himself, or what you're doing, or what he needs to find out from you, and it's very disarming. So watch for that when you watch this guy cross-examine.
Right. He goes back and he'll say, "Oh, fair point. My fair point. Oh, yeah.
Just one more thing before I go. That's the way Columbo got these people."
Yeah, that's Columbo. It was great. And so then at the very end, he gets into it meant not only were all these things wrong with the report, not only did the software of the company she directed show it, and clearly under what they use, as opposed to the parsing parsing sounds like such an evil word. It's almost like nefarious, right? Doesn't, but that, as a matter of fact, there was definite movement, right? 12:31 to 12:56, which she had initially in one report, and made it sound like it was that. And Leslie said something like, "Have you been told the importance of like seconds count in this case? Minutes matter." You know, I've been told nothing. I was just asked to do these things. Okay. All right. So, and then he gets to admit that she was off by three minutes because in another report, she said it was still moving at 12:32.16 a.m. 12:32.16 a.m. The phone was still moving. And it didn't matter whether it was moving up or down. It was moving.
Yeah. And when was the actual hard press shut off? Soon after that, right?
Yeah, it was soon after that. It was after that. So it had to be within 12:33.
So she even, I think she sort of missed the point that Alessi was making, which was, yes, the phone was moving, because she started saying, well, it could be an elliptical, it could be on a bicycle, it could be on a train, although I don't think it was on a train. You know, she's making it very clear. Yeah, it's moving. Do you get that? Do you get the importance of that? It's moving. Now, is it sprouting legs and walking itself across the lawn to the front porch looking for Chloe? Or is it in his pocket and he's going in and toward to the house?
Right. And she records steps. She says, yeah, steps. Oh, yeah, but she says the steps may not be actual, but it's not, doesn't really about the steps because it is about the movement. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it is about the movement. And then there was one thing before we get to a clip of her, which is we have two I'm sorry's. I know you missed these.
I did. I want to see this. Yeah.
Yeah. I would like you to there you go. Before we go back to Judge Cannoni, on this, why don't we see a controversial clip of Jessica High on the stand? And it looks like after Alessi is crossing her, it looks like she turns to the prosecutor and says something about sorry. I mean, she definitely turns to the prosecutor. Michael Bryant, you're frozen again. Can you hear? Can we hear you? I don't want to play this clip until he becomes unfrozen. You know, in the snow, in the sunshine down in Dedham, it is. So we've got a little bit of a frozen Michael Bryant here. So we want to hold on for a second. You know, he may not even know he's frozen. Does he know he's frozen? I don't know. Why don't we send him a message? Okay. All right. Why don't we send him a message? I am going to actually send him a message. Our Starlink is frozen because you're frozen. He's probably going to sign out and come back in. He's probably going to sign out and come back in. So we're going to play. Oh, there he is. He's coming back in. I just heard him. I was hoping you got our message that you were frozen or freezing or something.
I totally disappeared here. So have you done it yet? Did I miss it?
No, I was waiting for you. Let's
okay.
Look. Our discussion about Mr. O'Keefe's phone and secured or not. You talked about one example of maybe needing to use a biometric to unlock a phone, and that might be a reason, as I understand it, as to why someone might not put it in a Faraday bag or box. Do I have that correct?
Correct.
Okay, do you know whether the passcode was immediately provided on the phone of Mr. O'Keefe?
I do not have that information.
Assume that the passcode was immediately provided for the phone of Mr. O'Keefe. Can you think of any other reason why that phone wouldn't be put in airplane mode, Faraday bag, or Faraday box?
Best practice would be to put it in a Faraday bag.
Okay.
Sorry.
And that phone was obviously...
Yeah, can we tweak that just one more time?
Let's do it again.
Just
do it again.
Back it up just 5 seconds.
She turns to where Hank is, and she says, "Sorry."
And that phone was...
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, it's so telling, obviously, but also to have a witness actually do that, to feel compelled to apologize because something she said she knows is not helping the folks paying her salary.
Now, the problem is Leslie didn't stop there and say, I would have stopped there and said, excuse me, what did you just say?
Yeah.
What did
I'm
you
sorry.
just say?
were you apologizing to me? What? Who are you? You know, make her flesh that out.
Because we don't know if the transcript's going to get that, but that's very clear. If not, they should make a point to play that in court. They should ask the court to play that. And you know what the court will say? No, we won't play that because that's not the formal. It's not the real transcript of the proceedings, right? It's just a video. Can we play it again? Can we play it again? Because it's so unbelievable.
Okay.
Sorry.
And that's
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. Arctic
Sorry.
Cat. Michael Faraday was a chemist and a physicist. There you go. So
there we go. So she's saying sorry about the whole testimony, sorry about the Faraday bag, sorry, but she was very, during her direct, she was like, and then when Alessi was very, very good in trying to pen her in because she wanted to talk a lot, and he really did pen her in. And I think that's because the judge, by the way, Michael Bryan, and we'll go back to that, by the way, welcome, Romy, member for 1 month. May the 4th be with you and also with you. She made a comment about that, by the way. She made a comment about that.
The witness did?
The witness did.
Okay. Well, she's kind of geeky, so it doesn't surprise me. That's kind of. But where would that come up? In what context did that come up?
I forget. It was early on when she sat down or something. And she was introducing herself. Okay. But what happened was, and this is another rant that I went on. The judge was every time Alessi wanted to make the record, he wanted to make a record about using this Herrera case and all that kind of stuff. And then every time she went to testify and give an opinion, he objected. And yes, sidebar. On the third time, the judge says, something to the effect of that'll be the last of these, Mr. Alessi. Okay. And so I guess they went up, and I said at the time you were out doing something we're going to show in a little bit. You were out roaming the hood, so to speak. I said at the time, that's outrageous. When they're up there, they better make a record that she said that she demeaned them in front of the jury, and they better ask for some kind of instruction to them from her. All right, because it was ridiculous. It's outrageous. It's wrong. Okay,
it's out of line. It's unprofessional. It's the.
I think that was reversible error.
Complaint.
Yeah, I think it's reversible error.
Yeah. Right. Could be. Yeah.
So Alessi not being coward though, every time she went, they must have had a thing up there that she said, well, you can make your objection and we'll that'll be fine. You don't have to come back up. So he did 3 more times. He objected every time the opinion. Objected. Deborah J says, by the way, she remembers a higher date. This was in a higher date she had because it was May 4th.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I do remember her talking about that. Yeah, because she just passed her 2-year anniversary of working on this gig. So,
right. That's right. May 4th. So that's what it was. Yeah. So we had a second. I'm sorry, sort of, if you can find it. It's buried in here somewhere. From the judge. Why don't we play that before the cross-examination began?
As you know, I think I told you in the beginning, one of my functions is to make sure that a case is tried fairly and efficiently and not to waste anybody's time. So if I get frustrated at lawyers about something, I try not to, and I don't think I am, but if I seem to cut somebody short, the lawyers are just doing it. When they request sidebar conferences, they're just doing the job. I am going to try and keep all sidebar conferences to a minimum, but the lawyers are just doing the job. Okay. All right, go ahead, Mr. Alessi.
All right. I don't know how sincere it was, but she said it, right?
I don't think it was sincere, but she knew she had to do something. She must have talked to somebody over the course of lunch and said, you got to do something.
Or she just, she realized that was stupid. I shouldn't have done it. And Alessi kept pounding away to say, look, we need an instruction here because you've just made us look like the bad guys. Right.
And I tell the stories of how that happened to us in the Hernandez case and Jose Baez, who had happened to actually stood right up and just when the jury left and lambasted the judge for doing that. And you want to yell at me, fine, yell at me all you want, but you never do that in front of my client who's in front of that jury, and that jury is right in this courtroom. And the judge actually there issued a really good apology. Really,
Very sincere. Actually, sounded
very,
like
really sincere. He was a pretty good guy. He was a pretty good guy. Although we did argue with him on a number of things, as you do, because judges are usually
of course it's an adversarial proceeding, and
right.
it's not always just between prosecution and defense or plaintiff and defendant in civil. The judge is a key part of the process, and sometimes you don't agree and you got to say it. I mean, how many times in ASAP Rocky did we see some really outspoken attorneys, get into it with the judge, and he gave it right back to him. So I don't have any problem with that. It's part of the process. You try to do it outside the presence of the jury, though. Coffee cake, that looks so good. I feel like I'm going to have some coffee cake later. I didn't get to read the question.
Wait. I'm sorry. We must have hit it at exactly the same time. And
okay, let me finish coffee cake. Did ACA get their report in? Well, remember, her ultimate ruling was that she would allow even the most recent report based on whatever work was done. I haven't seen anybody talking about it. There hasn't been a subsequent motion. Probably will be by the Commonwealth at some point once they have a report in hand. But they were supposed to have it by the 7th, and that's today, right? So they were supposed to turn it over by today. We've seen nothing to suggest they did not. And we haven't heard any crying from the Commonwealth that they did not.
Well, maybe we'll hear tomorrow. Who knows? Because
if they didn't get it today by midnight.
By midnight, yeah. Who knows what we'll say? But they're clearly working really hard on this. I mean, that was another thing. So I apologize. You and I must have hit both.
Okay, go ahead.
At the exact same time.
Okay, there we go.
All right. So Shanta, thank you, Shanta. New here. Michael, are you inside the courtroom every day? And if so, can you comment on how the jurors look like? Expressions a key point. Thanks.
Boy, don't get me started on this, Shanta. I tell you, no, still not inside. Talked to the chief today about my credential. He talked to the folks in Boston. They were looking into it. He had nothing new to share, so I got the contact info, called, and left a well-reasoned but full-throated mention of where we were, what's going on. And I may have also mentioned that some of the folks I know are credentialed, I didn't besmirch them. Let's just say I wasn't suggesting they were all decades-long award-winning journalists, and there's got to be some reason we're being excluded. Don't know what it is, so I'm asking for that explanation. Have not heard it yet. I was talking to, I mentioned this before, I was talking to Esty today, who is a friend of the Reed, sits right next to them in court. You'll see her, no doubt, on that shot that has Mr. Reed and Mrs. Reed. And I was asking her how it was going. She's in there every day. So we were talking about the jurors, what's resonating with them, what do they seem to be interested in, what are they bored by. They definitely like Alessi, and I was specifically asking about today, which was basically the Alessi show. So they definitely like this guy. She didn't get a read on the witness, what kind of reaction they were showing, if any. Jurors are very good at not showing how they react to certain things, but you can tell we always are they writing stuff down. Are they, actually eyeball to eyeball paying attention? And that's about all you're going to get from them. But she did feel that it was a good day for Alessi today.
She felt it was a good day. You're kind of frozen again. We can hear you, but you are frozen again. I have to complain to Elon Musk about this mini Starlink that Justice Serve TV has bought. It's supposed to be working in like war zones. And last thing I looked at, you don't look like you're in a war zone here. Although I did notice when you did interview Karen Reed, you may have gotten kind of close to the buffer zone with your.
Oh my gosh.
Passes?
Well, I mean, this area right here, this is all inside the buffer zone. I mean, there's nothing happening on the fringes of the buffer zone, except, Scotty's out there, and I saw he was in the chat. Scott, good to see you again today. That's here, but no, I'm definitely operating inside the buffer zone and just waiting for somebody to say something about it. I think they've decided. I mean, when I'll be walking down the sidewalk by myself across the street, going up to the courthouse, and I walk by a Stady, and I'm sure I'm just being paranoid, but I'll see one of these. They talk into the microphone, so I think they're annoyed by me. They know who I am, but they've been told maybe just, let the little guy be alone. Don't worry about him. He's not going to hurt anybody. And as long as I play nice, I think we're going to be fine. But doesn't mean we shouldn't have a credential to be able to be entered in the randomizer. The randomizer, for those who are not aware, is some sort of magical device that they use at the Supreme Judicial Court to determine who is going to go in the courtroom. 10 media per week. They do it by the week, and then they pick 3 alternates. And so once you get past the hurdle of getting a credential, then you're in the second hurdle of the randomizer.
Yeah, but it would be nice to get a credential. And, the fact that they're not giving one still keeps your case alive, because if they gave you one, I don't know, would the court say that your case
is moot then? That's a good question. That is a very good question. Tom CPU, my co-plaintiff, is still outside. He's not being allowed anywhere.
Yeah,
he's totally on the outside of the buffer zone. So even if I were to be resolved from the case, it will go on.
Well, the fact that Hardman called you by your first name last week, this is your 10th trip up there.
Yeah, we just had a beer for dinner with the guy.
Right, no, he's kidding.
Great.
He's kidding.
Hanging out.
And knew you were a lawyer and stuff like that. So they know about this lawsuit. There's no doubt. They don't consider YouTube media. Unbelievable. And yet, it's kind of hard for them, really. If we really wanted to take them to court on that now, you probably could do it, because Judge Doolin, in his opinion, says that Aidan Carney's a journalist and he broadcasts by YouTube, right?
You know what? They seem to make this distinction, and Aidan and I were talking about it last week when I was up here. They consider a blog as more credible indicia of journalism. A blog. Let me just take 5 minutes and create a blog for you. I mean, it's ridiculous to consider that somehow gives you more credibility as a journalist than if you're doing what we're doing here. And again, from the definition that they live under, what you need to do is report regularly on matters of public interest. I kind of think we do that. So I just thought, for them to think a blog, and if you see some of the folks that are credentialed, that may be all they have is a blog.
Yeah.
But in the minds of the folks making these decisions, that's good enough.
Yeah, I think they're a little out of touch for the last 20 years. Joey King, who's been very good at putting the Mr. Wiffle Ball thing together for us. Thanks, Joey. And we've put it for our members in our members, section. Joey created, how to talk Ian Whiffen. I called him Mr. Wiffle Ball. So he says, Joey says, I'm good for the first 500 on your bail.
Nice. Speaking of Whiffen, and I found this interesting. I mean, who is a big fan, apparently, of Mr. Whiffen? It's Jessica Hyde.
Yep.
So I'm thinking, I do not want to hitch my wagon to that star, he'll take you both down in flames. So I don't know. I don't know if the jury makes that same kind of connection, because Whiffen was blown up in cross-examination about not knowing that 33.8 is not freezing. All of the things, just the minor details that just eroded his opinions. I don't know if that bleeds onto her or not. Depends on how the jury connects the dots.
Now, because you're there, you've been making some field trips. So this morning, as everyone knows, and today, I was on the air the whole day until you got on, and it's lunch and all, because you've been doing some investigations. What have you been doing? And I know we have some video to show everybody.
Yeah, should we show that, or should we just refer people to it and they can look at it?
Well,
you tell me.
Why don't we show what we have on the show tonight, and then they can refer to go watch it again.
Okay, so it's out there, and it's just a little, because we had the testimony we did over the last couple of days. Let's just watch it, and then we can chat. Who's that guy? Get out of the way. And on the ground here in Canton, and we're on the Fairview Road here. This is, just to give you a sense here, let me turn, you to see my face. Here we have Cedar Crest. I always get that street confused with the other one, but here we have Cedar Crest, and you see it just dead ends right into Fairview. So here's Fairview Road. And in light of the more recent testimony that we've had in the case, I thought I'd pop back over here and kind of look at a couple of things that came up in that testimony. Among other things, there goes the animal control person. Arguably, that could be a problem for me. Anyway, remember from Gallagher's testimony, he's talking about the Arlo Ring camera across the street, right? Where we're going to focus in on that a little bit. Also on the investigation and the search done by the CERT team and Mr. Officer or Lieutenant O'Hara, who came right here to 34 Fairview. And remember, this was all stuff that took place on the street here in front of the house, because they didn't go onto the lawn to search along that area. They actually began their search. Here's the mailbox. They began the search kind of right here. And here's the curb that he talked about clearing. Remember that? Just your basic asphalt curb. The Jeep, see them all over in the east because they stand up in the winter better. Here's the lawn. And they did this search along this area I'm going right now, and it was like foot by foot. Remember, they each had a pole, or I shouldn't say a pole. They were each, some had a shovel, I think, and they were checking bit by bit as they moved along this part of the street. The street, again, not on the lawn itself. And so at a certain point, they ended up getting near the flagpole and stopping, and that's this weird area which they found, you know, like a handful. There's a car just driving by with a Free Karen Reed placard. It was taking a picture of the scene. Anyway, they were found in this grouping of about, 6 or 7 pieces in this 1 foot circle, and also the tennis shoe was found up against the curb right here. So all of that took place on the street, public street, within 3 or 4 feet of this curb, the curb right here. And remember, there was the snow building up. Let me back off a little bit to give you better context. The snow was being plowed from the middle of the street toward the curb. So that 3 to 4 feet that they used as their search zone had snow on it, plowed from the middle of the street onto that strip. So, and there's the fire hydrant, and there's the property dividing line is this series of trees here. So again, as you look back across that strip, they did a 60-foot stretch, and I've just paced this off. It's not official. I'm looking for the plat map to confirm, but it's probably closer to 80 feet from this property line here across the front to the property line on the other side, which is about where that light pole is. We'll head back that direction. But before we do that, I want to go over across and give you a sense of where the Arlo camera was. This is the house right, not necessarily across the street, and you'll remember in Gallagher's testimony, he was a little pissy because he was suggesting, hey, that house that at the time Deputy Chief Keller had the Ring camera or the Arlo camera. Here's the front porch. It's not right across from 34 Fairview. Well, you're right, it's not. It is not. If you look right across the street from this house, you're at the next door neighbor here at 32 Fairview. So technically that is correct. I think the bigger issue really is, why didn't you look at the damn footage? Maybe we wouldn't even have an issue then if you're standing at that porch. And that porch is a little elevated. Remember, I talked about this yesterday, how if the porch is a little bit elevated, depending on the location of the camera, it's going to limit your view from that porch toward the street. So maybe it would see me now. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe it would see diagonally across the street over to 34 Fairview. Maybe it wouldn't. But if you look at the damn video, you got a better chance of it actually helping, hurting, or at least answering that question. So I was concerned about that. Thought it'd be worth taking a look again with that specific question and that testimony in mind. And again, if you got I don't care if it's Arlo, it's a Ring, whatever it is, unless we actually see the footage, we're not sure what would have been seen on that overnight period in January of 2022. So just, why would you not keep that footage? It makes no sense. A lot of things in this case make no sense. Anyway, so walking back now across 34 Fairview to my left, flagpole, and this is the area that they searched. And they searched this 3 to 4 foot space so far, based on the testimony. We know there's plenty more to come, because why? There are about 40 pieces more taillight that have not yet been found. So this is the area they searched. They're very meticulous. Took about 50 minutes for them to do that. That's when they found the 6 to 7 pieces of taillight. That's when they found the tennis shoe, and that was about it. So, and here's the fence that marks the other side of the property. Again, I think it's about 80 feet, give or take. And actually, so just thought it was worthwhile to take that look. Well, I've cut myself off. I'm talking to myself. I actually stepped it off. I was back over there again trying to talk to some neighbors, and it's really more than 100 feet wide. So this is a 1/4 acre parcel. What that tells you is pretty wide, but also means it must be very shallow, because a 1/4 acre, a 1/4 acre is roughly 15,000 square feet, give or take. So the way they've got these lots laid out, super wide, but also super shallow, meaning your front yard and your backyard not very big, and that's why people have been most surprised at how shallow that front yard appears when you see it in true context. Like I'm just walking right by and you see it, I don't know, what is it, 15, 20 feet, from the curb to the porch. It's not very far. So the other thing I found out is when I went back was I started knocking on some doors and got a lot of no answers.
You're fearless. You're fearless.
Well, I really almost feel like, and I know you folks have been bugged enough by this, you probably wish it was just all over. But I did talk to a gentleman. I'm not going to out him yet. He was comfortable giving me his name, and his wife's a teacher in the area, 2 houses away from the subject house, which I guess limits who it could be. But he was fine with giving me his name, and we may do an interview. We're trying to work it out. But he told me about his family. He had been there for decades. One of my questions was, first of all, did you see anything, that night? And he did not. Slept through whatever it might have been. Woke up in the morning, and even then couldn't really tell that anything had happened. You know why that is? In part, they didn't park a squad car there, and they didn't have the place cordoned off as a crime scene. So to him, didn't really look like much. Here was the most important thing. I said, so anybody come by? Any cops come by, question you, what you did see, didn't see? He said, nope. In the first few days, I said, nothing. Nobody came by in the first. I said, how about, we're now 3 years out. Has anybody ever come by from the DA's office, from the cops, from a private investigator, anybody come by to see what you have seen or heard prior to, at the time of, and since the incident? Nope. Not one person. How do you not canvass 2 houses away from where the incident took place?
I don't know. I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I mean, talk about no shoe leather, no doing anything. I've got my person. I'm going to stick to it. Gladys Kravitz, thank you so much for that donation. Kelleher camera possibly picking up 32 is better than 34 BC. They claim 32. They claim 62 feet in reverse, which means it started in front of 32 Fairview. Watched your video. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. They could have seen Karen Reed's car go past, anything go past, right?
Exactly. Even if it wasn't the scene itself, you could see traffic coming and going. You could help with the timeline on that.
Right.
If we see her car leaving at 32, then, that's really going to hurt the prosecution's case, because they got to have her there longer than that.
Right.
They just have to have her there a little bit longer than that. So again, this case is all about what is not available, not what is available. It's the lack of evidence that is making this case so difficult.
And the fact that they seem to be just everything is terrible. It's not one thing. It's everything is terrible. Everything is terrible. By the way, I assume the neighbor didn't have a body ever on his front lawn.
No, and he did not have cameras. But again, that's something that a canvas would have been checking. And even if you don't have, like I put Ring cameras in my house when we moved 4 years ago, but the prior owner had other, actually better cameras up and around the perimeter of the house, right? So just because you walk up and you don't see a Ring camera or an Arlo or one of those, doesn't mean there aren't other cameras on the property. But that's something law enforcement should have checked on, and they didn't.
By the way, you can watch that video again on our Justice Served TV YouTube website. We did tweet it out. The link is there in our X Twitter account, and it's also on our Justice Served TV website. Because sometimes when you're looking at things, you see more things, and you want to comment on them, and please comment. We're at Justice Served TV on our X account, and also you can also comment here. So you have a full day there tomorrow. I'm going to be traveling in the morning. We'll join you well before lunch, hopefully. But I know you have a full day going on. What's up for you?
So we'll be mobile. We'll be mobile tomorrow. So I'll be across the street, and kind of using what we've used in the past, but with better sound. I've got a new hook up there, so we should have much better sound, and we'll catch whatever happens prior to the start of trial, and then obviously we'll go into court for that early testimony, and we'll kind of relocate. And at some point, you and I will probably get together somewhere, maybe by the first break in the morning. If not, I'll cover that, and you'll join as soon as you're able. So that's the plan. So we'll be here. We'll be on the ground. We'll be across the street. As it unfolds, it'll be available for you to watch.
Yeah. So Mary has a question before we let you go. Michael, you drove, I know it's been a long day. You drove up this morning. You've been from 34 Meadows to 1 Meadows in 7 minutes, give or take. How long do you think it would take with the snow that night?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on how proficient you are in the snow, how big a daredevil you are. I think the bigger components to that time frame at night are the signals. There may be 3 signals, and I guarantee you during the day, during a normal weekday, they are cycled in a way that you're going to be sitting longer. And during a snowstorm or even normal midnight to 1 in the morning time frame, the lights are probably going to be much more friendly, meaning you can go faster. But in terms of safety of driving, I don't think I ever exceeded 35, but I wasn't going 20. So
and she was going 20, if I recall the phone testimony from Whiffen.
Up to
with the
34
waterfall to the house, right,
Yeah.
to the house. Where she was going slow. She was a very, very careful driver. Apparently, it seems.
Yeah. So I don't know why we don't have that information, because they've gotten so much geolocation information from all these devices. Why can't they give us that number? Maybe we'll get it. But to answer the question, I think you could do it in 5. I don't know how you can do it any quicker than that. Yeah.
So we are going to let you go. And
listen, Teresa, Aiden's in the buffer zone tomorrow. If he is, I will bump into him. Wonder if he's got some doings here. I know somebody said that he's suggested tomorrow is going to be kind of big, kind of exciting. So I don't know. Maybe he's got something happening.
So maybe, and you're there. You happen to be there tomorrow morning in the buffer zone. All right. So we'll see what happens. We do have a portal set up already for our show tomorrow. We may title it something different than we have, but right now you can portal into it. And I guess you're going to be starting, 8:30 then, if you're going to be there in the buffer zone?
Yeah, I mean, we'll work it out, but it'll be somewhere in there. We know that they've been arriving, anywhere around 9:45 to 10 till, give or take.
Right, but if Aiden's going to be there, maybe it'll be something earlier.
Maybe, and I might be able to chat with him ahead of time if he is. The courthouse itself does not open till 8:30, so they're not opening the doors. No need for anybody to get there early.
We have Blessed Mama Texas said that she sent us an email that her boy was going to be there. It was just trying to figure out when you can be there. And I guess so, Missy, we'll probably have to set up for 8:30 tomorrow to be live. I definitely won't be at my location by 8:30, but hopefully within 2 hours.
Take your time. Drive carefully.
Yeah. So, Micah just said he just appreciated buying the Faraday bag. Went and bought mine to keep my eyes on the key. People don't really know about it, but that's how they take your car without having your key and just out of your driveway.
Just clone it. Yep.
Just clone it. Yep. Right.
And they're not expensive. They're really not.
They're like $10 for a pack.
Yeah, I mean, they come in a variety of sizes. So check them out.
Yeah, just check them out for safety. So the things we learn. But big day today, big day with Bob Alessi doing the Alessinator. That's his daughter's handle on Twitter. Doing the cross. He was great. He was fabulous. I was riveted the day. I mean, I sat here all day and I was riveted. It seemed like it was 5 minutes. There was a little slow spot in the middle about the populating where their phone populates. But other than that, I was riveted. So.
Yep. Good stuff. Good job today, partner.
Yeah, Aiden said Buchanan is testifying tomorrow. So now we're going to get into it because the Commonwealth can't do without Buchanan.
And we were trying to guess, okay, is it going to be one of the big names? And so that answers that question. So, of course, he's going to be slipped in the back. He ain't going to be subject to my annoying. So, okay. Well,
Turtle Boy Live. I'll be there.
I'll be there. All righty.
I'll be there. All right. And Michael Bryan will be there too.
I'll try and corral him before he goes in. So get an update. All right. All good. Okay then. Again, good job today, partner. Appreciate all the.
Thanks my husband for joining this morning on the show today. I know
nice
Missy.
Surprise.
By the way, Sheila wanted to know if the chief still lives there. I believe so. I don't want to undo Turtle Boy Lives, who's going to be there. I'll be there. But Missy did, I think, put in the chat my husband's bio. But he didn't talk about this case. I want to make it clear. He didn't talk about this case. This is not his case. It's not his thing, as far as I know. It's our thing. But he did talk about what happens in an autopsy room when the police come in, why they're there, when they leave, what they should be taken away with them. And it cemented the fact that Judge Beverly Cannoni's sustaining of those objections the objections were wrong, the sustaining the objections was wrong, and maybe tomorrow Michael Bryant will go on rants because I had rants today. But let me tell you,
as ranter, you rant a lot. I internalize things. My cerebral approach is a little different. So we're a good mix of oil and water or something.
Yeah, and I don't think you're ever going to see a witness turn to a prosecutor and say,
yeah.
Again, so
I cannot recall that happening. No.
Yeah, it was a great day for the defense, and we're going to keep at it. Again, if we see something bad for the defense, we'll tell you. But so far, we've said, look, what Hank Brennan, just before we go, is trying to do, he's trying to just get the simplicity of the juries. He's trying to get them in their mind. He's trying to almost like a Stockholm syndrome, I was saying, like, oh, come with me, because here's simple. There's red pieces of glass. And look, she said, I hit him. These are the 3 EMT people. How could you not believe them? And, she had these things to say on the TV station, which they ended with one today, which I thought was stupid. And it's either me, one of us is going down the camera. Well,
I know what they're trying to do. I just don't know if it resonates. But anyway.
Yeah, well, that's what they're trying to do. So that's what they're trying to do. But remember, the prosecution's case only is as good. The best time of the prosecution's case is when they rest. Okay,
exactly.
It doesn't get any better. And the defense has been chipping away, and I don't see anything that can show proof beyond a reasonable doubt now. And we haven't even heard the good stuff yet. The jury's been listening to those. Wait till they hear they've been lied to.
Well, tomorrow with Buchanan will be the start of some big testimony. So I can't wait. Going to be good. All right. So I guess we'll see you then in the morning. Until then, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing.
And before you go, I'm going to give you a second. You have to hit that like button. The subscribe button doesn't cost you anything. The share and the notify, because you didn't see the content you'd have anyone's show here today that you see Michael Bryant there. We may not be big media, we may not be CBS and all, but we've been there. We're committed. We've been there 10 times, about 20 days, and we're committed to bringing you the truth and what happens in that courtroom in the Karen Read trial, and give you our opinion, like it or not. And a lot of people don't like the fact that we seem to be saying the prosecution hasn't proved their case, but that's where we are.